Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the JQ. And after finishing part 1, I realized I had missed some of the meat right in the middle. So I want to do a short video and hit that because I think it is essential to getting the fullness of the JQ. So I'm going to continue here from our book, Judaism and the Vatican, and I'm going to go to page 71. Thus, over a period of 2,500 years, under different races, different customs, different attitudes, and different religions, under the Persian, Greek, Roman, medieval, the problem, the JQ, remains to this day identical in form since the beginning of the dispersion of the people among the nations. The reality of the JQ plan is simple. The JQs, the J's, feel bad everywhere, even in Israel, when they are there or here. That's why they emigrate. A stranger among the peoples resisting conversion and assimilation, constituting a state within the state, the JQs tirelessly apply themselves to Judaizing the nations of the world. Why? What is the agenda? I want to be a little bit more clear here. In his book, The Jews and the Present World, this esteemed French author springtime, if we've heard that before. But ultimately, he ended up saying, quote, thus, it was not the Jays who became Protestants, but the Protestants themselves who were Judaized. And I mentioned that in one of my chapters here, In Pursuit of the Metaverse, about the rise of the English Empire. The idea that people get into negotiations thinking they can handle it, and history has demonstrated every time they end up losing themselves in the process. Karl Marx says, quote, the Jays emancipated himself in the Jewish way, not only by becoming masters of the money market, but because of him and by him, the money becomes a world power. And the J's, the JQs, the practical spirit was adopted by the Christian people. And when I say the Christianity today has become Judaized, we have really taken on the American spirit, the spirit of classical liberalism. And that's precisely what Marx is saying right here. For Alfred Nozick, the Jews have become, there is a historical mission. Quote, the Jewish community is more than a people in the political and modern sense of the term. It is a repository of a world historic mission. I would in every way say it's a cosmic mission. And I would say that it's part of a cosmic conspiracy. And what exactly is that? Elie Farrar says, quote, they get the upper hand over and against all men sooner or later. Let me repeat. They get the upper hand over and against all men sooner or later until they reach the final point of their mission. What does that mission look like? We talked about Noahide. We talked about Antichrist. But let's hear a few quotes over the centuries. Max de Montt says, in The Jews and the God of History, quote, 2/3 of the civilized world are already governed by the ideas of the JQ people. And these ideas of Moses, Jesus, Paul, Spinoza, Marx, Freud, Einstein, And I'm about to mention again, it's an earthly sense that this is all there is. Think of the control against the modern media, the Netflix, the things we entertain and amuse ourselves with. The punchline of all this that we've absorbed our whole life is that this is all there is. We will make only the small distinction that they have denied and continue to deny Christ, and at the same time glorify Marx, Freud, and Einstein. The J's very often retain only the purely temporal aspects of the promise of the covenant, essentially agnostic. They search exclusively for earthly happiness. Again, what's identified here is this typological separation between the synagogue and the church. From the Jew in Modern Capitalism, Vimar Sombart writes, quote, "The oldest form of Judaism know nothing of other world, which is happiness and misfortune can only be of this world. When God wishes to punish or reward, it is for men in this life. The thereafter," says L.A. Foa, "the thereafter does not exist as such. Wherever we may have said Israel never believes in the thereafter." Here's why I want to mention this again. The JQs obey the world, bend it to build their empire. So there's several pages that I wish I would have got into. It's a world of their own, an empire, a world under their dominion. And I didn't really emphasize that as enough. How would Christians survive in such a world? It can't survive. It must be eliminated. That is the agenda. And I want to be quite clear about that. It is because the man does not deserve to listen to the voice of St. Paul, who was, again, a trickster, a huckster that brought about this idea that we wait for to achieve the promises of God in this life. So I wanted to emphasize that again. They want to reduce the whole world to the J's dominion, to the J's values. This is the JQ utopia that Michael Higger speaks about in 1932 or 34, depending on your copy. That's what the world is being shaped and moved for. Quote, essentially unsuitable, to a certain extent unadaptable to the nations which they belong to legally. The JQs instinctively and inevitably tend to reform and transform national institutions so as to adopt to their value systems and the goals in which they appear, getting on board their mindset of the messianic salvation yet to come, to be delivered in the people in this world and in this lifetime. The power of the JQ exists in inverse proportion to that receiving the states. The ultimate goal, we hear in the author of Israel Against the Nations, is the enslavement and the domination of the whole of humanity. I know that sounds like strong language. So that's why I wanted to couch that between, first of all, the book before Vatican II, the book after Vatican II, and demonstrating this is consistent with all of the material that has been memory hold. So this agenda transcends nations, peoples, and it has been consistent throughout the ages. That is the JQ. We know it in the back of our minds because that would be what the age of Antichrist would be about. But sometimes people tend to spiritualize this and say that it's just the devil. And no, there is a seed of people that are going to deliver about that agenda. And if we're not clear about that, we can fall victims to that agenda. In the book, The Literature of the Poor in the Bible, the nations will gather and pay homage to the Jays. The Jays will command all nations and put them under their feet, capturing the riches of the world and the wealth of the nations. End quote. Quote again from the author, The Jewish Problem. That's what we're talking about, the Jewish question. As far as the final results of the Messianic revolution, it will always be the same. God will overthrow the nations and the kings and make Israel the king, triumphant of the world. In order to achieve this, they must convert the world to the law of Judaism. Christians would call that the old law that Christ came to perfect. Jews will be the masters of the world. And again, a great memory hold book, I have an old video of it from 7 years ago, is The Jewish Utopia by Michael Higgers. The international dream of the Jays is the unification of the whole world under their direction, their domination, and their dominion. They will be a priestly class. Everybody must be subjected to this power. Imbued with this role, they will make every nation unable to impose their will. The ultimate crown will be the destruction of Christian civilization. The Jay's soul has been waiting for 5 or 6 centuries for the opportune moment for demolition. We did a video over on Locals this week where we talked about kenosis, the auto demolition of the church, and particularly how it occurred during Vatican II and is going on today. We could say the controlled or the auto demolition of Western civilization. The historic mission of the Jays has been clearly defined, perhaps for all times, and will be the main factor in the apocalyptic era. Again, to replace Christian civilization with its own. And again, that is from Ile Farrer. And I just wanted to make a quick video to really underscore the point that the destruction of Christian civilization is there. They must own the resources, the minds, and the soul, bend the will of all men, all cultures, all nations, all creeds, all races to the dominion of the masters of the new age, the new world order. So just a quick appendium. I hope you all are doing well. Thanks now.